Discover the incredible truth, 7 amazing lessons that will transform your life forever. Sarah stood in the dim attic of her grandmother's old farmhouse, the musty scent of time clinging to every corner. As she moved boxes and sifted through forgotten memories, her heart raced at the thought of anything that might help her change her life and her son's. The weight of her waitress job, the long hours spent serving food that barely paid the bills, loomed heavily over her. Could this dusty old attic hold the key to breaking her free? With each box she opened, a deeper layer of her frustration unfolded. Her life felt like a treadmill, running fast but never moving forward. She longed for something greater, something to pour her hopes into. But turning dreams into reality required more than just hard work. It demanded opportunities that had eluded her for years. Suddenly, the crinkled edges of a faded letter caught her eye. It was from her grandmother, a woman she barely remembered but had always admired for her quiet strength. As she carefully unfolded it, words began to spill secrets about a thriving business, one built on creativity and resilience before it fell victim to the biases of a male-dominated society. For the first time, Sarah felt a flicker of hope mingled with bitterness, a legacy denied and a dream dismissed. The anguish churned in her stomach. Could she reclaim what was lost? Could she stand against the tides of doubt that her community wielded like weapons? The letter ignited a fire within her, yet the thought of failing tore at her insides. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by her grandmother's story, Sarah set out to reclaim her heritage, yet uncertainty gripped her. As she stepped into the business world, confrontation swept in like a storm. Meetings filled with dismissive smirks, conversations dripping with condescension paralyzed her. She could feel the tension building within her. Frustration bubbled over, mingling with despair as she saw her vision being reduced to doubts based solely on her appearance and status. Her heart raced, indecision gnawing at her. What if she failed? What if the town's whispers of skepticism suffocated her ambition like a noose? With her son's artistic dreams hanging in the balance, the stakes felt insurmountable. The stakes shifted dramatically when a corporate giant emerged, their ambitions threatening to erase her grandmother's legacy for good. In her darkest moment, when the world felt unbearably heavy, she met Henry, a retired businessman whose kindness felt like a lifeline. He saw potential in her, saw the passion bubbling beneath her surface. As he shared his wisdom of negotiation and ethics, her muscles tensed with uncertainty. Could she really fight against the corporate giants? The tension served as a vice around her heart, squeezing tighter with each challenge ahead. As the pressure mounted, looming shadows of doubt and expectation intertwined, Sarah stood at a precipice. Could reclaiming her family's honor mean sacrificing the stability of her son's future? The dark clouds of her struggles swirled ominously, leaving only one answer hanging in the air. Would she rise above or succumb to the life that had kept her trapped for so long? The silence around her grew deafening, and she realized this battle would define her destiny. What would she decide? Sarah awoke the next morning with the weight of uncertainty still pressing on her chest. Glancing at her son, who remained lost in slumber, she felt the flicker of passion from the night before reignite. She had spent the previous day battling insecurities, and now she needed to channel that fire into something productive. The letter lay open on her bedside table, the words echoing in her mind, a call to take action rather than retreat into the shadows. With newfound determination, she took her first steps into the world of entrepreneurship, transforming the kitchen table into her war room. An avalanche of plans flooded her mind. She began jotting down ideas: how to honor her grandmother's legacy, yet make it her own. Memories of her grandmother's resilience fueled her creativity. She could almost visualize each product, each service that could flourish within her plans. However, with opportunity came the visceral sting of doubts. Could she, a waitress with barely a college education, stand toe-to-toe with seasoned professionals? Henry's encouragement replayed in her mind. His belief in her seemed naive yet hardening. If he could see potential within her, perhaps she would find a way to channel that belief into reality. Determined to start, Sarah meticulously crafted a business plan. Her daughter's art supplies were scattered across the living room floor, a testament to his young ambition. A plan emerged. They could create a combined venture, an artisanal crafts business that showcased not only her talents but also her son's artwork. It was a unique touch that would set them apart from the corporate giants threatening their future. But setting goals was easier than taking the necessary first steps. Each time she leans toward making a call to a potential supplier or reaching out for mentorship, a familiar chill of dread halted her. What if they laughed? What if they dismissed her as just another hopeful dreamer? The more she contemplated, the clearer it became that the mountain of fear was her greatest adversary. One afternoon, as she stared at the worn notebook brimming with sketches, an idea struck her. She could organize a small exhibit featuring her son's art alongside her crafted pieces. It would be grassroots. It could establish connections with the local community and showcase their creativity firsthand. The thought energized her. A way not only to promote their collaboration, but also to solidify her place in this town, overcoming the spectator role she had occupied for too long. As she crafted invitations and reached out to local business owners for support, she felt insecurities pull at her once more. Questions flooded her mind. Would anyone attend? Would it even work? Each question weighed heavy, threatening to snuff out the small spark of hope she had captured. Determined not to waver, Sarah scheduled a meeting with Henry, seeking his insights into securing vendors and managing the logistics of the exhibit. She felt both exhilarated and terrified. This was a roll of the dice that could catapult her into a new world, if only she could silence the surrounding sounds of doubt. With every moment leading up to the meeting, she felt a shift within her, a slow metamorphosis from passive dreaming into active doing. This was the rebirth of her grandmother's dreams mingled with her own aspirations. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in the dying light, a notification pinged on her phone. It was a message from a corporation she had once applied to, an acknowledgement that hundreds had submitted for a singular opportunity she thought could help jumpstart her idea. There it was again, that cold grip of fear. The stakes had risen. This was not just about her anymore. It was about her son, their legacy, their future. As she prepared for the meeting with Henry, the evening air buzzed with anxiety and anticipation. Would she rise to the challenge, or would the shadows of doubt consume her before she could take flight? The clock ticked down, and she wondered where this daring path would lead. What awaited her on the other side of this pivotal decision? The morning light filtered through the kitchen window as Sarah paced back and forth, her hands slightly trembling. The invitation design lay unfinished on the table, each unbolded phrase taunting her with missed opportunities. She had been given a glimpse into her potential, yet the depths of her doubts whispered incessantly, urging her to reconsider. Why had she waited so long? It was a question that revisited her with each passing moment. Deep down, she understood that she had spent years yielding to fears, allowing them to dictate her path instead of carving her own. But now, with her grandmother's spirit guiding her, she could not let this moment dissolve into mere what-ifs. She owed it to her son and to herself to put her foot down and claim her narrative. As she grabbed her phone, sweat prickled on her forehead. Even the idea of calling Henry felt monumental. Would he recognize her fear, or would he see her transformation? With a deep breath, she dialed his number, her heart pounding in a rhythm that mimicked a war drum. voice came through, steady and confident. It bridged the gap between her past self and who she aspired to be. They spoke about the exhibit, the logistics, and vendors, every detail a thread weaving her dreams into reality. His laughter, the kind that soothed without condescension, brought a glimmer of certainty. "Sarah, if you're thinking bigger, anchoring yourself through your son's art is an amazing way to build your brand and reach people," he said, enthusiasm radiating through the phone. "Embrace that uniqueness. You have something they don't." These words struck a chord deep within her. For too long, she had seen her limitations instead of her strengths. This was her grandmother resuscitated, a legacy waiting to breathe its first breath. After hanging up, Sarah felt invigorated. She recorded the insights Henry had shared, meticulously organized materials, and set real deadlines for contacting local artists and suppliers. The fears that had gripped her like chains began to loosen, pulling away and revealing a pathway strewn with possibility. But with each action came the specter of readiness, a challenge that loomed larger than anticipated. As days passed, she dove headfirst into her preparations. Each morning began with her son's artwork spread before her, vibrant colors splashing the kitchen table, filling that space with life and imagination, exactly what she wanted to convey through the exhibit. She reminded herself that she wouldn't just be showcasing art, she would be telling their story, embodying the very core of both their artistic identities. But as the morning of the exhibit approached, she felt shadows pooling around her. Each completed detail only magnified her fears. What if no one came? What if the art went unnoticed? In those moments, she would glance at her son's sketches, allowing a single truth to ground her. This was not solely about acceptance, but embarking on a journey of self-expression. She was redefining her worth. In a moment of deliberate reflection, Sarah sat down with her notebook. What were her limits? Was she simply a waitress, or did she possess the makings of an entrepreneur? The metamorphosis was evident, yet the final steps loomed large. One evening, after meticulously reviewing her plans, she received a second notification, a congratulatory message from the corporation regarding her application. This window she had opened felt both exhilarating and paralyzing. Would stepping into this broader arena compromise her budding business, or could it help propel her forward? As she set her phone down, a wave of resolve brushed over her. The decisions ahead would shape not just her future, but also the identity she wished to carve out for her son. She was at the edge of a chasm. A leap was necessary. The clock chimed, reminding her it was time to step further into the unknown. Would she venture into that chasm and emerge with the wings of newfound confidence, or would she retreat to safer grounds, forever wondering what might have been? With the future at stake, Sarah felt her heart race as she took the final steps toward that leap of faith. The day of the exhibit arrived, cloaking Sarah in a surreal tapestry of excitement and fear. As she dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror. Who was staring back at her? Was this the woman who'd nearly let her dreams crumble beneath self-doubt? No. Today, she would be a vessel of her son's creativity and her own rebirth. Her small apartment buzzed with the chaotic energy of last-minute preparations. With each errand, she rehearsed her pitch in her mind. The local artists were counting on her to share their stories, their struggles, their meanings. This was no longer merely about showing art. It was about creating a dialogue, a connection. Yet a dark undercurrent tugged at her thoughts. What if her efforts fell flat? What if the stories she sought to tell vanished into the ether of indifference? A sudden knock on the door jolted her from the whirlpool of her anxiety. It was Henry, holding a few fresh flowers and an infectious smile. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement that momentarily banished her doubts. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile but feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing on her chest. As they drove to the venue, the rhythmic hum of the tires on asphalt became a strange lullaby. Sarah's thoughts vacillated between nervous anticipation and the comforting memory of her son's artwork, bright, genuine pieces that spoke with honesty. She was determined not to let her fears overshadow what mattered most. Upon arriving, the sight of the venue sent a fresh rush of adrenaline through her veins. A pale blue banner fluttered in the breeze, announcing the exhibition. Sarah could feel the collective energy of the approaching crowd, yet anxiety thrashed within her. They were there for art, yet she felt like an imposter. "Remember, this is your space," Henry reminded her, his voice slicing through the veil of doubt. She nodded, taking a moment to inhale deeply, allowing the air to fill her lungs with an edge of courage. The art was hung, the lights were perfectly set. A swirl of faces soon began filling the room, laughter and conversations vibrating against the walls. Each presence was another heartbeat within the burgeoning community she aimed to create. As she stood at the edge of the exhibition, Sarah observed the attendees engaging with the artwork, each piece sparking animated discussions. It felt liberating and terrifying, to say the least. But a rewarding surprise ensued. Individuals did not merely look at the art, they were moved by it. One woman stood before her son's work, entranced, nodding as she whispered to her friend, "This reminds me of my childhood." With every voice she heard resonating, Sarah's body began to warm, infused with a sense of purpose. Perhaps she wasn't just an organizer today. She was a storyteller channeling art into the world. As she approached small clusters of people, introducing herself and discussing the inspirations behind the pieces, she felt the spark of connection igniting her own self-belief. However, amidst the sporadic waves of empowerment, shadows began to creep back. Whispers of self-doubt clawed at her, questioning her every decision. What if this was merely a fluke? What would she do when the night closed and all the vibrancy faded? Suddenly, a voice called her from across the room, a familiar face from her past, a fellow employee from the cafe. Her stomach churned as she recalled their previous tense exchanges, filled with judgment and disdain about her ambition. Would her presence here sow the seeds of envy or doubt? "Sarah, right?" the woman approached, her tone curious yet challenging. "I didn't expect to see you here. Heard you were trying to branch out." The room pulsated around her, yet this moment crystallized vividly in time. This was not just a conversation, it was a reckoning. How would Sarah respond? Would she allow the remnants of her past fears to dictate her present, or would she seize the moment as a reaffirmation of her journey? As she took a steadying breath, preparing to confront her history head-on, a rush of determination surged through her. The moment was here, a test against what she feared most. The choice loomed. Would she stand tall or shrink back? The answer had the potential to shape not only her trajectory, but to redefine her relationship with her past. With her voice steady, she began to speak. Her words flowed, confident and unyielding. "Yes, it's me. I guess you could say I've found a new path," she replied, her eyes locking on to her former coworkers. The air thickened with a tension that could be sliced with a knife. "I'm showcasing local artists and sharing their stories. It's been an incredible journey." The woman blanked, momentarily caught off guard. Sarah felt the stir of triumph. Perhaps this wasn't just a casual exchange. It was a moment of reclamation. She was no longer the woman who felt the weight of her aspirations suffocating her. This was a declaration of self, a challenge to the judgment she had endured. "Really, that's interesting," her former coworker said, though the hint of skepticism dulled the compliment. "Well, good luck with that." It felt as though Sarah had crossed a threshold. No longer eager for approval, she felt an urgency to delve deeper into her motivations. The threads of doubt remained, but they unraveled before her tenacity. Noticing a group attentively discussing her son's work, Sarah turned her focus back to the exhibition, her heart racing with renewed belief. As she moved among guests, she shared insights about each piece, witnessing their reactions, each one reinforcing her growing confidence. The stories behind the art were more profound than she could have imagined. Each interaction chipped away at her insecurities, allowing her to glimpse a future where she belonged. Yet the nagging voice in her mind lurked in the back, darker corners, echoing reminders of her previous failures. What if she wasn't cut out for this? In her quieter moments, she questioned whether this success was merely a fleeting illusion. Could she really sustain it? Deciding to push through, she clutched her son's vision like a lifebuoy, convincing herself that this wasn't just about her. The exhibition continued to swell with a blend of excitement and curiosity, but soon the exhaust of her earlier confrontation returned to her thoughts. Every time she caught a glimpse of her old coworker, who stood at the edge of the room, judgment etched on her face. The fear of regression nudged at her inner resolve. Determined to fortify her sentiments, Sarah picked up a glass of water and approached the group she previously spotted. In the dim light, their conversations formed a rich tapestry. One man spoke passionately about the peace that represented loss and hope, resonating powerfully with her own experience as a mother. Encouraged, she seized the opportunity to share her story of transformation, her voice steady against the growing chaos of sounds around her. She aimed to show how embracing vulnerability intensified creativity, how seeking connection fostered understanding, making the art more than mere paint on canvas. As the discussion deepened, she found herself pouring out revelations she never anticipated, revealing her personal challenges while shifting the narrative from fear to empowerment. The sheer act of sharing her experience set her free, unveiling pieces of herself she thought were too fragmented to be willingly explored. Just as the connection between them reached a pinnacle, Henry's face appeared beside her with a grin that reflected unwavering faith. "You're doing great," he whispered, a supporter in her corner. Anxiety diminished, exchanged for pride as she absorbed the crowd's enthusiastic responses. Then it hit her, the true essence of her journey. She was not just showcasing her son's art, she was crafting a narrative, carving her identity through each connection she fostered. The fear that had once paralyzed her had been transformed into determination. But the moment of enlightenment was abruptly punctuated by the loud laughter of the woman from the cafe cutting through the revelry, a taunt disguised as amusement. "Didn't know sharing your son's doodles count as a serious career choice? Hope it pays off." The laughter of others drowned out for a moment. The challenge issued. Internal scrutiny had returned, wrapping around her chest like a vice. Sarah's breath quickened. The air thickened with tension. The moment was ripe for confrontation, forcing her to question her progress and determination to own her narrative. Would she rise above or slip back into defensiveness? As she stood facing her past, the stakes rose ever higher. Each second cascaded into a decision that could potentially redefine who she had become. The next breath hung heavy with possibility, the outcome of which remained delicately poised in her hands. Would she embrace the confrontation? Yes, she thought, no matter the cost. Her journey was just beginning. The decision loomed like a storm on the horizon, threatening yet electrifying. Would it push her forward or send her spiraling back into the abyss of doubt? The sound of laughter reverberated in Sarah's ears, rippling through the confidence she'd just begun to cultivate. For a fleeting moment, she felt the walls of self-doubt closing in, the familiar chokehold of insecurity threatening to pull her back into the shadows of her old self. Her heart raced. She could either let the motley group surrounding her cling to old narratives or step into the light with conviction. Clenching her jaw, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. The laughter was a test, a challenge waiting to be confronted. She could feel Henry's presence beside her, a grounding force that stoked the embers of her resolve. His unyielding faith was a reminder that the narrative she chose to embrace was hers alone. "Excuse me," she interrupted, her voice breaking through the cascading laughter, tinged with uncertain strength. "Art isn't just about critique,
It's about connection and the stories we carry. The weight of her words hung in the air, silencing the crowd's amusement. The woman from the cafe turned to look at her, surprise flickering across her face. For a moment, there was a crack in her facade, allowing Sarah to see the fear beneath her scoffing exterior. Perhaps it wasn't just envy. Perhaps it was insecurity masquerading as judgment. With newfound clarity, Sarah continued, feeling a surge of empowerment flow through her as she addressed the crowd. The art showcased here isn't simply my son's work. It's a reflection of our shared humanity and the battles we overcome. Each piece encapsulates dreams, struggles, and the beauty of resilience. The crowd responded, leaning in closer, absorbing her words. In that moment, they moved from observers to participants in her journey. She could see their receptivity, the way their expressions shifted from skepticism to curiosity. It dawned on her that the laughter was not aimed at her, but at the idea of vulnerability itself, a concept fraught with danger, yet rich with untold potential. Feeling the room shift around her, Sarah identified her role as a facilitator of those connections. Her voice, once small and timid, grew louder, more assertive. She spoke of her own challenges, the moments that led her to embrace this new path instead of retreating into the safety of mediocrity. The fear of failing is what holds us back, but embracing that fear is where the magic lies. I chose to share this experience not because I have all the answers, but because I am redefining how I see success. The sincerity in her voice began to resonate, stirring recognition among her listeners. As Sarah poured her heart into the gathering, she felt the currents within her twist and strengthen. The deeper she delved into her vulnerabilities, the more power she embraced. Each shared story mirrored the essence of struggle and triumph. It was exactly the connection she had sought, not
just for herself, but also for others who floundered in their shadows. A murmur arose as guests began sharing their own experiences, and the atmosphere transformed into something raw and communal. It became a web of authenticity woven from the threads of each participant's stories. Laughter, tears, and nods of understanding intermingled, shifting the focus from judgment to understanding. But the laughter from the woman remained a faint echo in the back of Sarah's mind, a persistent reminder that not everyone would embrace her journey. Would that doubt ever fully dissipate? Each person had their own lens through which they perceived her, and perhaps some would never grasp the beauty of her chosen path. Confronting her past self was not the end. It was merely the beginning of a continuous quest for growth. She understood that the external judgment was less significant than her internal journey. As she navigated the collective energy in the room, a crucial insight emerged. This was about more than her success. It was about empowering others to step forth and share their narratives too. And yet, amidst her newfound clarity, a sense of unease lingered. What would happen once the celebration quieted? Would she find the strength to face the inevitable critiques that would come her way? As the crowd gathered around, discussing the pieces with a refined enthusiasm, Sarah's heart raced with awe and anxiety. She knew the battle with doubt was far from over, and each step forward would demand as much courage as the last. With her thoughts swirling, she realized that she stood on the precipice of something larger, an opportunity to redefine what it meant to live authentically. What awaited her beyond this moment of vulnerability? The tumult of her hesitation remained, a question waiting to be answered. Would she seize the narrative or allow it to slip back into the shadows? As the echoes of shared stories filled the air, the path unfurled before her, brimming with uncertainty and promise. The moment hung heavy, alive with tension. With the evening wearing on, Sarah felt the energy in the room shift again, the collective anticipation crackling like static in the air. Yet her heart remained anchored in a whirlpool of unresolved questions. She had taken a significant step, there was no denying that. But what lay ahead? She gazed at the crowd, witnessing their energy, their engagement, yet the specter of doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. The initial surge of empowerment had become interspersed with trepidation, each laugh a reminder of the vulnerability she had exposed. She could not ignore the woman's dismissive chuckle that echoed in her mind. Would that cynicism grow stronger as the conversations deepened? Sarah caught sight of Henry on the fringe, watching her with a proud smile that seemed to buoy her spirits, but the uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Observing the small groups forming, she deliberated over her next move. How could she nurture this newfound connection without losing herself in the chaos of others' critiques? Seizing the precipice of the moment felt imperative. She would need to showcase not only her art, but the art of resilience itself. Suddenly, clarity pierced through the hazy mix of anxiety and determination. "Let's create something together," she called out, raising her voice to recapture attention. A simple statement, but she could feel gravity taking hold. The crowd quieted, eyes darting toward her. "I want you to share an experience that has shaped you, and maybe even inspire others through your own art, however you define it." They murmured, the air thick with curiosity. "Each of us carries a story, doesn't we?" A few nodded. Some exchanged wary glances, as if calculating the cost of revealing personal truths. This was risky, but Sarah recognized the potential for transformation. They could redefine vulnerability together. "Let's form small circles, share what has challenged us, and channel that into our creativity." She took a breath, trying to embody the very courage she was advocating. "Face your fears, and let's see where it takes us." As people began to break into clusters, the tension in the room morphed into an exhilarating potential. Sarah moved closer to a small gathering, urging them to express their struggles. She asked questions that nudged them into deeper reflection, slowly dismantling the walls they had built around their fears. With each story shared, the laughter transformed into an exhalation of relief, a release into authenticity she had inadvertently invited. In one circle, a middle-aged woman spoke haltingly about her recent divorce. The pain seeped through her words, but surprisingly morphed into a narrative of reawakening. Sarah noticed the woman's demeanor shift, her shoulders straightening as her voice grew confident. It was cathartic. Realization cascaded through the group. Eavesdropping on life stories, Sarah felt her own burdens begin to feel lighter. Their truth had a heat that melted her trepidation. But then she heard it again, a low snicker, unmistakably the woman from the cafe. The laughter bubbled over like a dark cloud threatening to rain on newfound connections. Was this the moment where old narratives reasserted their grip? "That's enough." The sharpness in Sarah's voice surprised even her. The woman's laughter died mid-breath, the shock pulsing through the gathered circles. "We are not here to demean each other. We're here to rise together." In her statement lingered the echoes of conflicting emotions, sensitivity merging with a burgeoning courage to stand firm. Confronting the judgment on her terms was both exhilarating and terrifying. Silence enveloped the room, a pregnant pause where the air held the weight of her challenge. Yet within that heaviness, another realization cloaked her with courage. Embracing authenticity might just be the key to outsmarting those who aimed to belittle her journey. The moment ignited something in Sarah. It wasn't merely about her courage, it was the echo of vulnerability coloring the stories she had encouraged others to share. With fresh determination surging through her, she wondered if she could also embrace criticism without letting it define her journey. Her heart raced with possibilities and challenges that awaited beyond the laughter, bittersweet as they may be. She stepped back, letting the energy of shared stories envelop her. Each moment felt like a step forward on the tenuous path toward redefining success, a dance between vulnerability and strength. As the stories wrapped around her, Sarah wondered how she would continue to strategize her growth amidst inevitable judgments. But as the woman exchanged an unsure glance with her peers, she realized this battle for authenticity was far from over. Perhaps the greatest challenge awaited her in the form of a confrontation not with a person, but with a familiar part of herself, a nagging belief that perhaps art,
connection, and truth were not always safe. Would she emerge victorious, or would old insecurities entrap her once more? In the gathering darkness of doubt, a new challenge loomed. The pivotal moment was approaching, a confrontation that might dismantle the very essence of how she valued herself. What would she uncover when faced with the truths that still lay buried within? As the murmurs of the crowd settled, a profound silence enveloped Sarah. This was the crucible moment, the juncture where her internal struggle spilled into the external reality. The warmth of shared vulnerability had rekindled her spirit, but the undercurrents of judgment still tugged at her. The realization that she was standing toe-to-toe with her insecurities was a bitter pill, yet one she could no longer ignore. She felt flushed with a tightening anxiety, her thoughts flickering like a candle in the wind. Was she truly ready to embrace her rawness? Each passing second propelled her mind into a dialogue fraught with old fears, thoughts that scolded her for putting herself on display, for daring to dream beyond a narrow conception of who she was meant to be. But in the radiant glow of vulnerability shared in the room, a flitter of resilience ignited within her. Henry's reassuring presence anchored her. Though doubt clouded her mind, his unwavering gaze whispered encouragement, urging her to channel both the energy of the laughter and the heaviness of skepticism into something transformative. She shifted her stance, a subtle adjustment that echoed a newfound determination. This was more than an inclusive session of storytelling. It was a redefining moment, pivotal in its potential for both herself and those around her. "Let's take a breath together," she urged, her voice steadying. "Let's ground ourselves in our intentions." At first, hesitant, the crowd breathed in unison, a tangible wave of energy flowing through them. With that breath, she felt layers of tension peel away. It became clear to her that combating the cynicism represented more than silencing the laughter. It was a personal journey of unearthing unspent creative potential. As stories continued to flow between groups, Sarah allowed her observations to reflect back what she had learned. Each narrative weaved into the next, building a collective tapestry of resiliency that offered both solace and strength. It struck her just how connected their experiences were, how each struggle held beauty hidden beneath the surface, much like her art had always aspired to reveal. The laughter resumed, but this time it was different, lighter and interspersed with understanding. Sarah dared to smile. It was the sound of shared humanity evolving. They were not only navigating through vulnerability, but were also crafting a deep sense of community, a practice in rediscovery that transcended mere conversation. But then Sarah's attention flickered toward the sharp sound of a cutting remark. The scoffing laughter she had hoped would dissipate was now unmistakable in the back of the room, the woman from the cafe resuming her role as naysayer. The weight of the moment landed heavy on Sarah's shoulders, a test of the very resolve she held. How could she step forward now, knowing that judgment loomed large? A wave of frustration surged within her, the flames threatening to consume her once again. The laughter had begun to rise in pitch, an insidious reminder that not all voices were attuned to harmony. At that precipice, Sarah steeled herself, her inner dialogue bursting forth. Do I let this define me again, or do I choose to dismantle it? What if I confront this fear instead of retreating into the shadows? In that heartbeat, she decided. She moved toward the source of dismissal, resolving to stand resolute. We are united here, sharing not only our struggles, but our triumphs, she declared, her voice cutting through the noise. The room hesitated, the laughter dying down, replaced by a charged stillness. Even as her heart thudded in her chest, she felt a surge of boldness. She could articulate her truth without caveats. She could face opposition and emerge transformed. This was the embodiment of her growth, the juxtaposition of discomfort against the backdrop of newfound empowerment. As the room settled into contemplative silence, Sarah sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a collective pause, a question of identity hanging in the air. What would she choose to do next? Yet deep within, a gnawing thought persisted,
a fear of the unknown repercussions that lay waiting for those courageous enough to embrace their truth. The laughter, finally silenced, had left a chasm she must now navigate. Would her push against the tide lead her to freedom, or would it earn her rebuke? The tenderness of the moment wrapped around her like a shroud, but inside she felt the stirrings of transformation. She understood now that the greatest adversary wasn't the woman's derision, but the remnants of her own self-doubt. Just as clarity began to fill her mind, another wave of revelation washed over her. A name bubbled to her consciousness, a long-buried friendship that once inspired her passion. What had severed that connection? The need to rediscover these roots shook through her. Could she reach back to that part of herself without unraveling the progress she had made? As the weight of the past mingled with the urgency of the present, Sarah stood at the crossroads. It was time to act, to delve deeper into her journey and reconnect with the threads that once formed her artistic identity. What lay ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: the battle was far from over, and the true confrontation awaited, one that could either fortify or challenge everything she believed about herself. The air in the room buzzed with an energy that felt almost tangible. Sarah's heart raced as she processed her surroundings, her mind still teetering on the brink of her decision. Fear and determination danced within her, each vying for dominance. She was struck by how palpable her own vulnerability felt, the raw edges of her resolve hardening into something solid. As she breathed deeply, she recalled the name that had floated into her consciousness, the artist from her past, Lily. Their friendship had once been a springboard, the very cradle of her creative ambitions. What had driven them apart? Was it the artistic rivalry or a more personal fallout steered by the currents of their evolving lives? The questions felt urgent, pressing against the walls of her mind. To rediscover my creative roots, I need to confront this, Sarah thought, the thought spiraling her toward action. Within the silent room where eyes were fixed upon her, she resolved to reach out to Lily. The possibility excited her. Could rekindling that connection provide a fresh canvas for her spirit? Or would it expose seams in her emotional armor? She felt an unexpected wave of adrenaline wash over her. The laughter had transformed, yes. It now offered fertile ground for deeper connections. She sensed a semblance of control returning, allowing vulnerability to coexist with strength. But more than that, she understood that this journey necessitated embracing discomfort, not fleeing from it. Let's explore what connects us, what defines our truths, she challenged the invisible voice that whispered caution. This was an opportunity to immerse herself in creative risk-taking, to confront her past and bolster her future. The quietness in the room shifted, the once stifling pressure now metamorphosizing into potential. Sarah allowed the warmth of connection to swell, filling the gaps left by uncertainty with freshness. Ideas, memories, the spirit of her friendship with Lily, and her intrinsic passion for art. The image of Lily's vibrant canvases flickered through her mind, their shared laughter echoing from days filled with paint-stained hands and late-night talks of dreams and aspirations. Maybe, she asserted quietly, but with conviction. Even as doubt shadowed her thoughts, its hold felt less potent. A moment later, she sensed heavy footsteps behind her. With a quick glance, Sarah saw Henry approaching, his eyes softening with a mix of understanding and encouragement. His unwavering presence was a reminder that she didn't need to traverse this path alone. Still, the idea of reaching out to Lily felt like stepping onto a bridge. Each step a calculated risk, a chance to reclaim what had been lost. "I've been thinking," she began, her focus back toward Henry, ready to share her contemplation with him as a sounding board. "About art, about my connections. I think it's time for me to reach out to Lily." The brief silence stretched between them like a taut string waiting to be plucked. Henry tilted his head, clearly intrigued by the shift in her tone. "That's a big step, Sarah. Do you feel ready for that?" "Ready or not, I have to try. I've spent too long building walls instead of bridges. It's my own hesitation that weighs me down." The emotional clarity that bubbled up was liberating. Stepping back from the precipice of uncertainty, Sarah prepared to embrace what lay ahead. Feeling the weight of all she had experienced shifting into resolve, she decided she wouldn't allow fear to dictate her course anymore. "We've created a space here for dreams to flourish, mine included," she said, rallying her resolve. Next steps need to be taken boldly. Each word felt like a step forward, yet a gnawing thought lingered. Approaching Lily could also bring unexpected repercussions. What if old tensions resurfaced? Could their past truly be reconstructed, or would it reveal rifts buried too deep to mend? As she stood at the edge of this emotional precipice, excitement mingled precariously with apprehension. The decision had been made, but the outcome remained shrouded in uncertainty. Would this reignite her passion, or turn into another misguided attempt? In that moment, Sarah knew she had ignited something within herself, a flicker of hope that offered a guiding light. It was time to act, to forge through the intricacies of past connections and reclaim her creative essence. As the weight of her resolutions settled in her chest, Sarah felt the first taste of newfound liberation wash over her, an exhilarating promise that perhaps the past held treasures yet to be uncovered. But emerging from the shadows of doubt would mean facing not only old friends, but a reflection of her own growth in the process. With a firm breath, she stepped toward her next move, a commitment to contact Lily. The journey ahead shimmered with both the thrill of possibility and the specter of vulnerability, an uncharted territory awaiting her. Would this act of rekindling connection become her rebirth or her undoing? The question hung heavily, and as anticipation swelled, Sarah knew she was about to find out. Days turned into weeks as Sarah navigated the tumultuous waters of reconnection, each moment enshrined in the duality of hope and anxiety. The act of reaching out to Lily, the once vibrant artist who mirrored her own passions, felt like a high-stakes gamble. Each text sent, each phone call made, carried the weight of an opportunity to reignite not only their relationship, but also her creative spirit. With every interaction, Sarah found herself treading carefully, cautious of the past that hung between them like an unspoken word. Yet, as her courage swelled, she willingly shed her reservations. Their conversations began to unfurl, revealing layers of shared experiences and artistic ambitions. While nostalgia painted their exchanges, it was a renewed vision of collaboration that began to take shape, a partnership that could blend their respective talents into something new and even more magnificent. As their plans crystallized, Sarah's heart surged with a fervor she hadn't felt in years. Together, they envisioned a series of workshops that would empower local artists to explore their creativity and share their stories, a mission inspired by the very essence of their own journeys. It was an initiative grounded not just in art, but in vulnerability, a step toward fostering community beyond their initial ambitions. The night of their first workshop was electric. Sarah stood at the front of the room, a tapestry of nerves and excitement woven into her being. The attendees filled the space, their eager faces reflecting a kaleidoscope of hope and aspiration, much like her own. As she prepared to speak, the reminiscent echoes of her prior uncertainties began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning confidence that stood tall in her chest like a monument to her growth. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight is about more than just creating art. It's about reclaiming your voice," she began, her voice steady yet infused with an infectious enthusiasm. "We've all faced challenges, and through art we can explore those struggles together." Sarah locked eyes with Lily, a silent affirmation passing between them. They were embarking on a journey of transformation, not just for themselves, but for everyone present. In the ensuing hours, conversations blossomed, each participant shedding fragments of their past as they shared their stories. It was cathartic, each revelation illuminating the shared essence of their humanity, the very potency Sarah had learned to tap into through her own struggles. Laughter flowed freely, tears were shed, and a profound understanding hung in the air. It was more than just an art workshop. It was a collective act of strength and resilience. The climax came when Sarah invited the attendees to create art pieces inspired by their shared experiences, a moment that blurred the line between artist and spectator. As paint brushed against canvas and colors collided in vibrant displays, Sarah felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over her. The act was one of raw liberation, a symphony of self-expression, where every stroke held the promise of newfound beginnings. As the night drew to a close, the room was abuzz with creativity and camaraderie. Attendees exchanged contact information, eager to continue their conversations and collaborations. Sarah's heart swelled with fulfillment, witnessing the impact they had collectively created. It was a far cry from her days of serving tables, where her dreams felt stifled beneath layers of doubt. Yet the most remarkable moment emerged when a woman approached her, eyes glistening with gratitude. "I didn't realize how much I needed this," she confessed, her voice quivering. "You've inspired me to pursue my art again, to share my story." In that instant, Sarah felt the full weight of her transformation take root, a sense of purpose enveloping her as she recognized her achievement was not just personal but communal. They had created something beautiful together, a ripple of empowerment that would extend beyond their immediate circle. With newfound confidence, Sarah stepped back into her own narrative, acknowledging that she had accomplished a significant leap beyond the fear-fueled cycles of her past. Her life was no longer defined by hesitation or the dismissive whispers of her former self. Instead, she stood tall as a recognized force within her community, an artist, a creator, and a catalyst for change. As she and Lily wrapped up the evening, their laughter invigorating the dimming space, Sarah realized her journey was about much more than just individual success. It was about fostering a sense of belonging for others, igniting sparks of creativity within those who dared to share their stories. Sarah had not merely reclaimed a lost legacy, she had redefined her place within this world, forging pathways for both herself and others to shine. Finally, as she drove home that night, the weight of doubt lifted, leaving behind a lingering satisfaction that echoed softly within her. She had achieved a depth of growth she once only dreamed possible, a steadfast belief that art could indeed be a vessel for healing and connection. This was the moment she had fought for, a culmination of resilience and transformation that gave her life renewed purpose. The path ahead shimmered with limitless possibilities. Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Conquering her fears had led her to a place where the threads of her past interwove beautifully with her present, crafting a narrative that would resonate through future generations. Now it was time to share her story. It was time to empower others to take that leap of faith. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues, Sarah made a promise to herself. She would continue to harness her story, using it to fuel her journey, believing wholeheartedly in the strength of authenticity and connection. And so she moved forward, ready to embrace whatever came next with solid confidence and unwavering competence. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.